My name is Mariah Taylor. I have been at the Nurse Practitioner Clinic in North Portland for 14 years, and my primary emphasis is from birth through 21, and it's a pleasure to be able to share some information with you at this time.
Now tell us, what are some of the #1 health complaints preschoolers have, and how parents can prevent them?
The number one is the ear infection. And after about age 7, we don't see that much of ear infections, but up to about age 7, that's the number one. And it's also with, as far as how to prevent the ear infections, if I could share with this, the chart here, when they are in the preschool stage, children who are put to bed with bottles are propped. Milk can run up that tube, Eustachian tube, and it sets up a media for bacteria to grow, which causes both rotten teeth and ear infections. So that's a way to prevent it, is not to prop the child. And I'm saying that so that if there are young parents in the audience, they can look at this as a means of prevention. Later on, it's avoiding the use of Q-tips. I hate to say that because some people think, oh no, here she goes again. But Q-tips do pack the wax against the eardrum, and it does cause problems. Sometimes ear pain, just the wax against the eardrum. Seeing that's where the wax is made, and that's what we're trying to see. You can see it's a long ways from there. It's almost on the outside of the ear. So avoiding using Q-tips is one way of preventing that wax from being packed against the eardrum, and dissolving the wax with just plain old mineral oil, baby oil, cooking oil, vegetable oil, anything but motor oil works. You just warm it up and put 2 dropperfuls into the ear. Turn the ear up like so, and put the warmed oil in there at night, and put a cotton ball in, and the little tiny hairs called cilia will work the wax out here, and that's where you use a Q-tip, is on the outside. That's how you can keep the ears clean without having to go to a doctor and have your child having the most uncomfortable procedure of having the wax dug out of the ears. You don't need to have that done if you just use any kind of plain oil at home.
But how do
It's
you put it
prevention.
up in there if they can't use Q-tip?
You'd use, it'll work, the little tiny hairs will work the wax on the outside, and that's where you use the Q-tips. You've got self-cleaning ears if you just use oil, and since wax is made of oil, you use any kind of oil to dissolve that wax, and it'll start flowing out. And when you take that cotton ball out, you'd be surprised the amount of wax that comes out with it. And the other thing is rashes. With preschoolers, anything from scabies, which is little mites that live under the skin. It's known as a 7-year itch. Believe you me, it comes more often than every 7 years, but it's known as a 7-year itch. The other thing is rashes related to ringworm. How you prevent scabies is from being in contact with people who have it. It's a skin-to-skin type of a condition, by the way. And it's not, it used to be associated with filth. It's more closely associated with people. For instance, if you live in a household with 10 family members, you're more likely to get it than you are a single-parent household, where there's just a child, because it's close proximation of living that creates that situation, spreading it from one person to another versus filth. That's a misnomer, and I'd like to set the record straight for that. It's certainly not because of people living in filth. It's because they live so close together. With the lice, it's another thing. I mentioned ringworm, and that's something, I grew up believing that it was actually a worm that lived under the skin. It's in the yeast family. It's a fungi, and it's basically something that is predominantly, I see it more in black children, and particularly those who've had chicken pox, and they've washed their hair before the scabs have cleared, and they end up with a secondary type of a condition, because you've got yeast on your skin, you have staph, you have strep, you have things that are healthy, as long as you don't basically interfere with their living environment, such as breaking the skin. A break of the skin can cause certain bugs, let's say, to grow. For instance, impetigo is a condition that I see with preschool kids and kindergarten children, Head Start children. It's very much confused many times with ringworm. Impetigo is nothing but a superficial skin infection that is caused either by staph or strep. And it looks like, in some cases, ringworm, but it's usually crusted and it's usually around the mouth and around the nose. And that is, it requires treatment. There are people who use different things at home to relieve the condition, but it usually requires a special medication. Getting back to the ringworm, I see it mostly in the black families, and that's little girls and boys, again, who've washed their hair too soon, who have a secondary infection after the chicken pox. And so it's very important to be sure that the scabs are dried, and then wash the hair. And in between, everything depends on hand washing, whether that's chicken pox, whether that's scabies, or whether that's whatever. Hand washing, almost being a fanatic about hand washing, is a way to prevent it from spreading.
One other thing, Mariah, what can parents do to promote general health in their home when you have a preschooler?
General health can be facilitated by doing three things that I can think of. Number one, thinking healthy, eating healthy, making sure the child is not a couch potato, that there's some form of activity, whether that's walking every day, being involved in school, in PE, sports, whatever, that the child has some form of activity. And when I say thinking healthy, there are people who think they're going to be sick and they get sick because that's what they are really looking for, and they make themselves sick by thinking about it. So thinking healthy thoughts and eating healthy foods and cutting down on particularly the sweets, and that's the thing that gets the kids into the problems with the teeth that I see. Not only the bottle mouth, and their kids are in Head Start that have bottle mouth because they have been they've been given the bottle too long. After age 1, a child should not have the bottle for any reason unless it has water in it. Pacifiers and bottles after age 1, they do predispose or set the child up for not only rotten teeth and teeth that protrude, if you've seen it. I can almost look at a ball player who's even in college or high school and tell you the kid who's been on the pacifier or the bottle too long just by the way they talk. It's thinking healthy thoughts, it's making sure that your child gets lots of love and hugs. You'd be surprised how healthy that is, and it conveys to that child that they're okay. Health to me is not just being without an ear infection, it's also mental health. It's also letting your child know that he or she are very important to you, and that they're someone special. Eating, getting the proper sleep, the diet consisting of, and many times the lower the income, the more carbohydrates are in the diet. It's easy to throw together potatoes and then you've got corn on the side, which is 2 starches, or spaghetti, all in one meal, rather than balance that with something green. I'm from a very, very large family, and I learned to cook and balance the food by color. There was something red, something green, something yellow, and my mother was a nutritionist and didn't know it, and I still cook that way, and because it's balanced. And if I have too many things yellow, such as corn and rice and potatoes and spaghetti, and I've seen people cook that way all in one meal, which is total starch, it's not balanced. But if you look at the color, the red, something red and yellow and green and so forth, that seems to have a lot to do with it. And then the mental attitude, being able to give a child something besides sweets, throwing them candy. They throw a tantrum at the food market, and what do? I'm going to give you some candy, or I'll buy you some candy, or whatever, if you be good. They come to the clinic here. If you don't cry, I'll give you candy. And so they're tempted constantly with sweets and sugars, and they develop an attitude for it. Substituting fruit instead of candy. Having fruit in the home, a bowl of fruit. Don't buy the cookies, don't buy the sweets, don't buy the candy. You'd be surprised at how children can develop an attitude for sugar, but in a natural form. such as in your fruits. They may, when they're from home, away from home, and they're around their other kids, try to do differently, but just basically having fruits instead of candy in your home, without the cookies, without all the things that actually set them up for dental hygiene, poor dental hygiene. And while I'm on that, brushing 6 times a day is very, very important. Not just the foods you eat that make a difference in how you feel and how you actually, how healthy you are, but your teeth. If you can imagine having this beautiful child, which all the little brothers and sisters are beautiful, but they smile and they've got a tooth here and they've got a tooth there, or someone, I always usually paint the picture of a man who just really, or a man or woman who really are considered attractive, and they smile and they've got bacon between this and eggs between that tooth, the others are green. I really paint sort of a gruesome picture to make a point that dental hygiene is important. If you can imagine how beautiful your child looks and they smile, and there's a time that they lose their teeth between ages 4 and 6. We're not speaking of that. That's just the normal growth and development. But what about the child who doesn't brush and they don't feel good about themselves about smiling simply because their dental hygiene have not been kept up? Why do I say 6 times a day? Well, you eat 3 times a day, and it's brushing after each meal, and you brush when you wake up and in between snacks. And if you tell a child to brush 6 times a day, chances are they'll brush 3. And so that's why I say 6. You can never brush too much. And we start them at 6 months, either with a soft cloth as recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics of Dentistry, or a soft toothbrush. And that's the beginning of that, because that's when the teeth usually erupt. Obviously, children are born with all their teeth. They just erupt at different times, but most children between ages 4 months and 6 months will have several teeth. That's when we start them on brushing and getting used to that toothbrush and chewing on it. Some of the other concerns have to do with little girls and boys that have forgotten which direction they're supposed to be wiping when it comes down to toilet training. They've been toilet trained, but little girls that wipe in the back and then the front, which they should be taught to wipe in the front and the back. And I have to, while I'm saying this, it's very important when I see Head Start children who don't know their body parts and they don't know the name for it, or because the family is not comfortable with their own sexuality, they'll say that there's no name for it. I can write a book on the different names that children call their body parts. They should be able to know that it's a vagina or it's a penis and feel good about it. It's not anything that's nasty. God made it. That's the correct term for it. If they want to call it a pooperlockie or a doomerlockie, we've had all kinds of names. Watermelon is one. I said, now wait a minute, we're going to change that name. If she's 5 years old or 4 years old, she should know what her private part is. When you teach them about hygiene, use the term that they use for it, teach them the correct term, and feel good about it. It is nothing to be ashamed of. It's a very normal part. It's like talking about the nose. Teach the little girl to wipe in the front and then the back, because you've heard of E. coli. E. coli, without getting too technical, is a normal part of the bowels. And so if you wipe in the back and you pull that in the front, you can start an infection, and that's the most common cause of urinary tract infections in little girls is E. coli, because they wipe the wrong direction. With the little boys, again, little girls about 4 years of age, they tend to drip dry. They don't take the time to wipe themselves. Little boys is making sure that if they are not circumcised, that they carefully pull the foreskin back and clean, and then retract it or pull it forward again. If it's left back, I've seen them that look like a little balloon around there, and it's very painful. Also, it can cause problems. Hygiene with the feet. I'm going from the head down. It's basically making sure the little boys and girls wear white socks, preferably over the colored, and if they have problems with ingrown toenails, and there are children that do, that they let their feet get air at night, And speaking of hygiene, I have to go back to the little girls. There are some little girls that wear their panties all day, they wear them all night, and we repeat, if they wear panties, they should have a cotton versus a nylon crotch, because cotton can breathe. That cuts down on the chances of irritation. And so they wear them all night, and they get no chance to get air. And sometimes it's cultural. Sometimes it's a preference, personal preference. It would be good to limit it, if they're going to wear them all night, that they definitely change in the morning and they get themselves a chance to get some kind of air. Getting back to the feet, the cotton socks, and making sure that the children, if any sign, early sign that you see that there's inflammation around the toes or a toenail that's growing in, that they try to seek some advice for. Preventing them from that would be to look at wearing, some kids wear sneakers all the time, or whatever the common term is, and their feet never get any kind of rest. They wear real tight shoes. If you see any early signs of inflammation around the toes or ingrown toenails, you might want to seek health advice for that. I just believe that the ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. And that means in keeping ourselves well, of thinking well, of eating those foods that produce wellness, and knowing that we are someone special, that every child, every boy, every girl is a king and queen, and their lives have to represent that. And also healthy as how they respond to each other.
Boy, I covered 4 or 5 segments of that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, thank
In looking at an ounce of prevention, we're looking at how to avoid 2 conditions: ear infections and rotten teeth or bottle mouth. When a mother puts a child to bed with a bottle, milk can run up that eustachian tube, and it sets up a media for bacteria to grow, which causes, here as you can see, that tube is connected from the sinus, the back of the throat, to the ear. And that's what happens when a baby's propped or put to bed. The milk runs up that tube and it sets up a media for bacteria to grow, which causes ear infections. And of course the milk, the sugar in the milk causes rotten teeth, or sugar and juice, either one. Again, where is wax made? The most common concern about how do I clean the ear? This is where wax is made. As you can see, if you look at this tube, it's about 1/3 of a way down. You simply take some mineral oil, baby oil, cooking oil, vegetable oil, olive oil, anything but motor oil works. Put 2, not drops, but dropperfuls into this canal by turning the ear up like so. You warm the oil up, put it in, put a cotton ball in. At night, it's very soothing, and the little tiny hairs called cilia will work the wax out here. This is where you use a Q-tip. And that's how you clean the ear.
Perfect.
Put your arm down for me. Put your arm. There you go. What I'm going to do, and it's not going to hurt. It's going to go, here, you hold on to that for me. There you go. It's going to beep, beep, beep. That's all. Doesn't hurt. Won't hurt. Listen to the beep. You're a cool dude. Says you don't really have too much of a fever. That's good. Huh?
My daddy do.
You have a daddy dude?
Q-tips.
Uh-oh. Q-tips? You know what we're going to do? Take a peek in your eye and see it's healthy. They tell me that you're 4 years old. Tell me when your birthday is.
July
Hey, July what?
the 10th.
You know, that's pretty sharp of you to know your birthday. Do you know your name, your whole name?
Tanjatawi.
All right. You know, if you get lost and there's a policeman around or someone, you're going to need to know your address too. And make sure that you know your address. What color is that, sweetheart?
Huh?
What color is that?
Blue.
We're going to work on our colors, huh? That one's green. See, what's it shaped like? Is that a square or a circle?
Oh, clear.
A circle is right. All right. And you say you're 4. You know what we're going to do? We're going to take a peek in your ear and see if it looks like door number 1, 2, or 3. Look at here. See this one? That's a normal, healthy eardrum. That has a little owie, that's a big owie. We're going to take a peek and see if you've got an owie in your ear. If there's a butterfly in there, okay? It's not going to hurt. Just like that. Look over there and let's see if it looks like 1, 2, or 3. You're doing fine, honey. It doesn't hurt. You're very brave. Tanya, and see if this one. There's no butterfly in here. Who said there was a butterfly?
That one.
Just keep looking at it for a minute.
I'm very concerned about his right ear. Can you come in? I always let the parents see it. If you'll step in.
Don't film me. I'm not forgiving.
You all need to quit. If I look like you, I'd be posing like this. This is normal, that's acute, and this is chronic. Take a look in his right ear. And if he's not, you said he's got a cold, but let me get it focused here. Okay, see that's the eardrum you're looking like. It looks like a dried up egg yolk.
Yes.
He has an ear infection there.
Okay. I see.
As you can see, it's supposed to look like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, he's got some fluid behind there. Just going to see if there's a butterfly in your ear, honey. Does he get an ear infection every time he gets a cold?
He used to. Not so much.
I just want to see if there's a butterfly. It won't hurt. See, I got to look in there to see if there's a butterfly. Not going to hurt. You hold on to it. Let's see. You're doing fine. Does he have allergies? Other side, honey. We're almost finished.
Yeah.
Does he have? Yeah, I can see by his nose. It's all pink inside rather than red. But it's. I would be concerned. Where does he go?
Right there too.
Northeast?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they took a look at that right ear. Has he had many?
Just when he was little. When he was first born, he had a severe one.
He doesn't have a hearing loss,
No.
but you know of related to it.
No, he's been up to CDRC,
Uh-huh.
and they've done complete.
Okay, let me let you see. See his tongue?
Yeah.
It's called a geographic tongue. It has a state of Georgia. No, that's Texas. This is Florida that you see on there. But that's normal
Yeah.
for him. And it's just a normal variation, but it does look like a state. Go sing, sweetheart. Go ah. See? It's beautiful. All the way back. A geographic tongue. Only a few of us have it, so you know he's special, honey. Hey, we're gonna go ah. Look at your teeth. You're supposed to have 10 down and 10 up. 2, 4, 6. You got them all there. You like brushing your teeth? Huh? Go ah. Ah. He doesn't have a sore throat? What about coughing or vomiting?
Just coughing.
Okay, this is so we can listen together, and we're almost finished.
I'm gonna be a doctor too.
Ooh, isn't that beautiful? That's yours, honey. I love to hear you say that. And I hope you keep that dream, okay? Because that's what tomorrow's made of, that's for sure. I'm warming it up so it won't freeze you to death when we put it on. Uh-oh. You listen to your heart go boom, boom. Now through your mouth go, blow. Just one time. Again. One more time. Cough for me. Cough. Ooh, that's what I hear down here. Okay. In and out, honey. One time, in and out. He's not around anybody that smokes, is he? You say no?
No.
I heard you say no. Thank God you said no. Keep my blood pressure down. Let me listen to you. What happens when they inhale smoke? It gives them respiratory problems. Turn your head, baby. Okay, one more time. Good, good. There's a little Connie or Charlene. Charlene, blow. I need the thermometer next door, because this is registering 97 and he feels warm. Did you give him Tylenol before coming?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh. Thanks. And one of those little pinwheels that they blow, because he's blowing out but he's not blowing in. That's it. There you go, sweetheart. Hold on to that and blow. The other way. Turn it around. Turn it around toward. Look, look. Like that. Make it go. Good. Cough. Cough. Blow. Good. Blow. Okay, I'm going to listen to your front. One more time. Sounds healthy in there. It's called rhonchi. It clears when he coughs. Okay, one more time. Okay. You are so special. You know what? You are one healthy little dude. He has, looking at the 3 lobes on the right and 2 on the left, he has mucus that's caught right there. And as he breathes in and out, you hear it snorting. It's not in his lungs. If you rub your hair in front of your ear, that's what it sounds like when he has the fluid in his lungs. He doesn't have that at all. All he has is what they call rhonchi. And breathing in and out, it vibrates. And that's why it sounds so rough. But it's not in his lungs at all. It's just right here.
Okay.
And it's nothing to worry about. Just giving him fluids. I'm more worried about his ear, the fact that it looks like that. And I need to have you start here, sweetheart. You need to get your toothbrush and toothpaste. There's all kinds here, whatever color you'd like. Every little boy and girl that comes here. Okay, come pick it out. Let me see if you know your color. Let me see if you know your blue. What color is that? What color is that?
Frog is the toothpaste.
Yep, you get toothpaste. You're right. See, these are blues. This is blue.
Yeah.
See here?
Yeah, I want
But I want you to
that
pick out what you want. I don't want you to take the one I give you.
I know.
Look at this one.
I don't want this one.
You don't know. Okay.
I want this one.
What color is that?
Black.
Black is right.
I like black.
Hey, that's you get it. Since you said that, that tells me you know your colors. And there's toothpaste here that has sparkles in it. See? Now the children that come here, see, he's coughing that stuff up, and which is good. He needs. Would you get his little goodie bag? Put his hug coupons. Then he'll go out and pick out 3 books, and sugar-free suckers, and hug coupons and toys. I stole my hug to begin with. I take it right off the top. Go straight for the top. Now I want you to come over here, sweetie. Charlene, hand me a piece of paper. Let me take your temperature again because that one thermometer did not register.
What did you say?
Just a piece of white paper, please, and a clipboard, please. Okay, I'm going to see if you have a fever again. I'm sorry, sugar. Oh, he just doesn't have. If you how much did you give him? Was it a tablet or liquid or what?
It's like a suspension. 1.5.
Okay, now we need you to go and get your books. You get 3 books to go home, but I'm going to have you sit here just for a moment, and you get some toys. This is what I want you to work on, okay?
Yeah.
Where does he go to school?
Charles New City.
Oh, okay. Look at here.
The dog got already named Krista.
Krista?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many sisters do you have?
No, I don't. I both.
He's got 2 brothers?
And my niece.
Let me put something in your ear. How many sisters you say you have? 1?
Yep.
Tell Mama you want twin sisters. Okay, to make up for it.
I don't care.
See that now? You heard it straight from the mouth of babes. And we gonna knock on wood. You get your wish, baby. Look at here, sugar. I'm gonna have you sit here. And I want you to keep in mind that about being a doctor. You can do it. Did you know that? Look at this. See?
I get the best. I get his medicine and toothpaste.
You know what one of the best medicine is?
Yep.
Is a hug.
Yep.
Did you know that? What, look at this, sweetheart. That's a circle, okay? This is a square. All the sides are equal. See? 4 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this just like that mirror behind your mom, there's 2 shorts and 2 longs. That's a rectangle. See? That's a rectangle. There's a circle. And there's a square.
And
Which one is a circle?
that's how you make it. You do like this. Then do like this.
You did a rectangle. Oh, tell me what that is.
A rectangle.
I knew it. He knows it. You know what we're going to do, sweetheart? Since you were so special and you let me peek in your ears, we didn't see any big butterfly except in the right ear. And that is to have him go out and get his stuffed toys. And you got some books. Okay, you're supposed to take 3 books home. Can you go out there and get your goodies? All right. You can take that with you. Okay? That's yours for being such a special little man. Go with Charlene, honey, and she's going to let you pick out your stuffed toys to go home. It's really special. Sweet. Right ear is a cross between here, except that there's some fluid behind it, and because there's fluid behind it, it's slightly retracted or sunken. But it resembles sort of a raw egg yolk. And so it tells us that his right ear will need to be worked on or treated or whatever. His left ear is like this, however. And some kids, you really don't know that they have an ear infection because they don't complain. They don't have the fever to go with it. Sometimes the only way you can tell is that, particularly for babies, every time they get a cold, they get an ear infection. But with him, if he's not the kind to complain, there's no way to know that. There's no way to know it. He's tough. If he's not a complainer, he's tough.
He doesn't complain.
And when his temperature is only 99 or 100, that is sort of at the level for a cold. And you wouldn't suspect an ear infection. Sometimes they get to be 101, 102, and more. But the right ear, just because of the way it looks, there's fluid sitting behind that eardrum. And we'd like to have it checked. If I knew that we weren't, well, you have another place, so I won't go ahead and treat him. But I'd recommend that he have the treatment so that we can get that looked at. And simply because of the way it looks, there's fluid sitting back there, and it's not allowing the eardrum to move. In fact, if we did a test with him, we'd probably show you that's where the hearing loss. Can you sit here? You won't believe it, but I've given away the tuning fork, Charlene. What you do is tell me, I'm going to touch your teeth and touch your ear, beside your ear, and you tell me which one do you hear louder, by your teeth or your ear. Let's try it. Like this, like this. Teeth or ear? Which one do you hear louder?
This.
Okay, let's do it again. Teeth or ear? Which is louder?
This.
Let's try some psychology. Your ear or your teeth?
This is my teeth.
Psychology didn't work, did it? The brother knows which one he is louder. Hearing louder through his teeth just simply means
No,
it's a
this
hearing
is
loss.
Dee rubber.
Let's get
No,
this.
oh, this is Dee rubber.
What is he saying? Dee Dee?
His brother.
Oh!
Here.
And your name is Sniggle Fritz? What is it?
Tyler, John
Tyler.
Tyler.
Ooh, he tells the whole thing. First, middle, and last name. You don't hear that unless somebody's mad at you. Tyler Joseph. The confirmation is that both of them, there's a hearing loss, and I guarantee if we took him in the room down there and we did the hearing test.
Do you want us to go now? Oh, Miss Sue, I just don't understand. I try to teach my children responsibility, and they just don't get it. They leave their clothes out. They don't want to clean their room, the bathroom. They leave the seats up. They urinate on the seats, and one of my little son urinated in the tub. I guess he was just trying to figure out, what color it was or something. And I try to teach them to pick up after themselves and, give them some sort of So they'll understand how to be responsible. But it just doesn't work. And I'm like pulling my hair out day after day after day. I don't know what else to do.
I know you're really worried and concerned, and I can understand your concern. We all want to have our children do the things that we think are appropriate or that were taught to us to be appropriate. But one of the things we probably need to consider is the fact that you got young children.
Mm-hmm.
And being young, a part of being young is wanting to find out about yourself, about your anatomy, about your world. As you said a few minutes ago, perhaps about the color of urine. Does it look different outside of the water that's in the toilet? A lot of factors. The other thing, you said something about maybe going to the bathroom on the toilet seat rather than inside of the bowl. Has your husband helped your son in learning about his toileting skills? You know, we assume a lot of things, and usually when you start toilet training, we start all the little ones on a sit-down schedule. You know, you sit down on the little potty chair, and then with the male children, we have to move them to being able to stand and being able to remember to lift the seat. A lot of factors involved. Could have been in a rush, in a hurry. Didn't think about lifting the seat. So you need to go through that with them, explain the steps, and being that your husband is there at home with you, I would have him talk with the boys and share with them what is needed to be done in the restroom. As far as picking up things and cleaning up things and keeping the room like you want it, I think that's a gradual step. You have to start letting them talk back to you. When you ask them to go and pick up the room, make it real clear about what you're talking about, where you want things put. And then go in and model it. Show them. When you're working in the kitchen, if they're sitting there maybe at the table looking at some books, or your older children doing homework, you might be talking through what you're doing. When I finish with this bowl and this spoon that I'm using, I'm going to put them in the sink. I'm going to rinse them off. If you got a dishwasher, you might say that I'll stack them in the dishwasher. If not, just show them. And then those things that they can do, let them feel like they're helping you as they're learning to put things away. Children can dry the silverware. They can do things with non-breakables. I wouldn't have them do anything that was with glass or something that might cause them to be injured. But let them learn that way. They learn by example. Another thing is praise. I like the way that you put your shoes away. I like the way that you hung your coat up today when you got home, instead of throwing it down on the floor, or throwing it in the closet, or throwing it on the bed, or the chair. And the other thing, though, I sometimes chuckle because oftentimes we tell our kids what we want them to do, and then I'll turn and I'll look, and I've taken my shoes off at the door, and they're sitting by the door. They're not in the room. They're not in the closet. So, mommy does it, grandma does it. Why not me?
Yeah.
And how you come in a rush and you throw your bags down and your jacket down, and maybe say, well, I got to hurry up and get this roast in the oven and it'll never be done. Then they come in and you want them to put their things away, and they're looking and they're your things on a chair. So by example, patience, slowly, we're learning something. As they achieve a goal, reinforcement through telling them that you are proud of what they're doing, that you like what they're doing, that they are showing that they are more responsible, explaining what responsibility really is, that it's being able to follow through on something, that it's being able to go from A to B to C and on with something, that you complete something, that there are things that we will need to do that we may not want to do, such as hanging up a coat. Who wants to hang up a coat when they're just about to come in and have a good snack? They'd rather do that. But the fact that that's something that you expect for them to do, and something that you do and that everyone that's there does, that we have the responsibility of putting our things away. And then it keeps from having one person have to do all of the labors.
Okay.
Okay, that's one.
Yeah, you can talk. I need some.
Okay.
I need some.
Our
you
next
listen, just go on and say anything,
segment
and I just want you listening.
is self-esteem. And Eve Ann has a child, knows of a child. We leave her kids alone this time.
Okay.
Knows of a child who she thinks is depressed. It just breaks her heart. Little girl down the street. You just see her and her head is down. She never smiles.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Have you had an opportunity to try any of the things that we talked about previously in regards to your children?
I did try some of them.
No, you just talk. I just want to listen. I don't want to answer any questions.
Oh, okay.
Good morning. How are you?
It's kind of intense. It looked like you listening to her.
I'm certainly glad that the rains have slackened down in California. I had a couple of friends who had a real close call on a couple of days ago in regards to water filling up their car and becoming really frightened and having to have someone come and rescue them. Real fearful kind of a time right now down there because the rivers are flooding and people are losing their homes. It's really kind of a sad situation and affecting a lot of people. And I understand that some of the homeless folks, they found several people, maybe 4 or 5 that have drowned, and that's because they were down near the waterfront, and many of them sleeping when the water overflowed.
Miss Sue, I just can't believe that you did not tell me about the day's appointment. You are just dressed beautifully. And I don't feel that beautiful right now. I feel like I just had to come into the office and try to help you out as much as possible. And now we're on television, Miss Sue. And I look awful, I think. Now, you can't say anything right now, so that's why I'm telling you this. But your earrings matched your jacket.
Do to boost your child's self-esteem or, stuff like that.
Okay. Quiet on the set.
Miss Sue, I was outside the other day and the kids were playing and there was this one little girl who was just off by herself and she didn't want to play with anybody and her esteem seemed to be really low. And so I tried to hug her and she didn't want to hug and she'd just run off and be by herself. How can you build a child's self-esteem and make them feel not depressed? Because she looked really depressed and that really bothered me and tore my heart up a lot. So what can I do to make her feel more comfortable and not feel depressed? Because she knows everybody, but she's just, I don't know, maybe her esteem is a little low.
Okay, hold it right there. Don't do nothing. All right.
There are several things that might be occurring with that child, and not having a lot of information about what's going on in her world. Sometimes there are things that are going on at home or within the school setting or with, that might be causing that child to feel unhappy. So it's sometimes difficult to help in that you don't know what the problem is. But nonetheless, if we are about our labors as educators, as parents, as just fellow human beings, we need to work very hard to be very receptive to children. Oftentimes a child looks at us, we're so much larger in our form that we really need to, when we're trying to talk to them, to kind of get down to their level, lean down, so that we can have maybe eye contact so that they don't feel like they're looking up at this big giant that has all the answers. We need to talk with them on that level. Just ask them, how are you today? To include them. If you're on a playground and there's some activities going, maybe inviting that child to come over and get involved in some activity. to join the other children at playing ball or in a game, or maybe if it's an occasion that you might be able to have the child feel more comfortable around yourself, perhaps a little storytelling and talking with that child just on generally about, how are you today? What are some things that you like to do? And if you can find out a way that you can open up the lines of communication, then you've got an avenue in which you can start to help that person, that child, feel better about themselves. Find out if this child is one who likes to sit by themselves and read. There are books that you can get to share with that child that talk about feeling good about yourself. There are activities that you can do that would include that child in the mainstream or working with the other children. But as I stated initially, not really knowing why that child is exhibiting that behavior, and if you haven't seen it on an ongoing basis, if this child has perhaps all the other time seemed to be happy and to fit in, it's generally that something has happened out of the ordinary. Children feel good when you give praise, and I guess I say that a lot, but we all like praise. We all like to feel like what we're doing is not only okay with ourselves, but more so it's okay with our fellow human beings, with our for children, with their little playmates, for us, with other adults, with our friends, with our neighbors. And the way that we determine that is a response that we feel that we're getting from folks. Do they seem to shy away from us? Do they seem to migrate toward us? And with children, the only way that they know to show that something is wrong is by their actions, usually. And so this may very well be a child who's crying out for love and attention. And then the other thing, you spoke of going over, trying to comfort her by putting your arms around her. There's so much of information that we as adults share with our children about strangers or folks that you really don't know, and so sometimes that even hinders our ability to get close to someone, to be able to give a hug. So we just have to kind of take our time and be patient and work at it.
Okay.
Now you want to talk to her, and she not you listen. She can listen for a while. You can go back over that again. That's fine.
Who, me?
You don't have to do nothing. I will put you out.
Of esteem building, was trying to tie that in some way, because there's some other factors. You're talking about hygiene and that kind of stuff. So it was almost a given to go right on into that, because there are a lot of reasons that people have low self-esteem. Children in themselves are so very honest that if you got a child who is not, hygiene is very poor and maybe has odors, then nobody's going to come around, or if they do, the kids are going to ton them. So there are a lot of reasons that folks may seem to be depressed. There might have been recent death, some changes in the household, split up of the family. There's so many things, but we have to be real careful, because what was going on in my mind was the legality type thing, that if you had been talking about your own child, I could go ahead and, ferret out some stuff. But if you're talking about a child you see in the neighborhood or in the school program, there's no way she's going to get privy to that information unless the child just divulges it. I lost grandma this over the spring break. And so everybody that heard it they've got that information. Otherwise, it's called breaking down confidentiality. I couldn't say talk to the teacher that you might be aware, because then we're getting into those gray areas. But if she's talking specifically about her own children, then I can, because she's opened that conversation with me, I can talk to her about specifics, like, are there any changes within the household, or any disruptions in her routine, something that's causing her not to go to bed on time, these kinds of things. But just talking at random, I don't want to get us over into an area where it's like we're negating confidentiality.
Yeah, let's just do it again.
Okay.
What scenario do you want to?
No. Okay.
Maybe we'll be able to open it up and
Okay.
put some more stuff in there that might be causing a problem. Do you want us to roll right into hygiene, or do you want us to?
Yeah, talk about, yes ma'am. Yeah, that was your next one, right?
Because it's not only hygiene, there's the fact about kids.
Okay.
Miss Sue, I have a one of my children. It has been withdrawn, and to me, seems like his self-esteem is kind of low. And when we do different family activities, he seems to be withdrawn. Or if we go to the park, or we go to church or somewhere, or a birthday party or somewhere, that he's withdrawn. And I was wondering what could cause that, or why would he be withdrawn from a family when we're trying to do family-oriented things?
Have there been any changes in your child's life?
Now, what do you want me to say? Because I don't know
I'll
what this...
go on a little bit.
So I don't have to answer nothing?
Yeah, well, you can.
You can if you feel something that you want to
And I can
add
turn
in.
around
And you can always add lib something.
But I mean, do I need to answer yes or no to make you keep going?
No, I'm gonna
You
say
can if you want
you
to,
can
sure.
if you want to.
Well, I don't want to.
No, well, just I was gonna go on from there.
Oh, well, see,
but
I
he
knew you
could.
knew how to handle it. She know how to handle it.
We ready? Have there been any changes in your child's routine? Anything out of the ordinary happen? Is there a new situation at school? Are there some activities that perhaps he was involved in at the church that he's no longer participating in? Or does he have some doubt about his abilities to be involved at the church, at school? Are you reinforcing and talking to him about the things that he does well and letting him know that you're pleased with his abilities? And are you working on those areas? There's so many things that happen in a child's life, and if you think back to the time when you were a young girl, and all the things that are occurring in your lifetime, and so many things, so many changes, and just little bitty things can kind of throw you off track. A change in the teacher, a change in what you were involved in. Perhaps, I can remember wanting to sing, just really wanting to sing, and being in the children's choir. And, it was fine no matter what your tone was. If you couldn't sing very well, there were others who could, and you kind of were in the background. And then when it came to, I got just a little bit older, and it was time to, go into another group, to leave the little angel group and go to the next one. Well, the person that was in charge wasn't very happy with the fact that I didn't sing well, that I always sang off key, and suggested that I, go to the junior ushers or do something different. And for a long time, I felt really bad because I wanted to sing and nobody wanted me to sing. I wanted to wear those little outfits, and I wanted to have people, really overjoyed that I was involved in doing something. And it took a long time, and a lot of work with my mother saying and encouraging, saying you can sing if you like, but you just can't sing in that particular choir. But you can sing along even from your post as a junior usher when the other children are having the Children's Day. And but I remember feeling really bad and people teasing me. Is your child growing rapidly, getting very tall? Things such as clothing and hairstyle. All these things play a factor, but we need to work with our children to let them know that being individuals, that's great. There's nothing wrong with not being, being a mimic of everybody else, looking like everybody else. Everybody wears this and everybody has that. We need to work on those areas. But talk with your child, first of all, and see if you can get him to share with you how he's feeling. Just ask him, how are you feeling? Is there anything that you want to talk with me about? Or are you having any problems at school? Because sometimes there may be things like another child bullying your child that you're not aware of. And then they don't know how to really share that with you because, especially being a male, males feel that they have to handle all situations. And maybe he's having some trouble there. Maybe he's having some difficulty at school or and just a little something that you're not aware of. But first of all, I would try to talk to him. And this self-esteem building is lifelong. It starts very early, and it's just a continuation. And as long as your child knows that you love him, that you care, and that you support him, that he can tell you anything, and that you'll listen. And it might not be what you want to hear, but you will listen, and you won't criticize or try to belittle your child or talk down to him, but that you will listen and that you will assist him in getting whatever kind of help he may need. I think you'll find that he'll come out of whatever this is. But if it continues and if it seems to get more severe, then you know that there are always other options. You may want to have your doctor look at your child to see if there are any changes metabolically. But and you may want to seek some outside counseling, maybe with your clergyman, with a school counselor. There are just a lot of factors. But then sit and think: are there some things that are changing that maybe you have not even thought about that may be causing a problem, and that may be resolved very easily?
Okay.
I don't know if that was any better than the other, but my mindset is about lost on me.
Yes, ma'am. Rolling.
Miss Sue, I was in a classroom the other day, and the teacher sent half of the class home because they were sick, and so she sent the other class home. Why would Head Start do that? I didn't understand that.
Perhaps they're
Okay.
Miss Sue, I was in the classroom the other day, and the teacher had sent half of the class home because they were sick, and the other class, she just sent them home. And I was wondering why did the teacher do that? I didn't understand that.
when you arrived, you said that there were about half of the children there,
And
then they sent the other half home. Well, one of the things that's happening is that
Hold it right there. One of the things that's happening is okay. Go on.
one of the things that's happening is that we've had several children out with flu, and so they are home. That's why part of them are gone. And then in that particular class, we've had a case of an outbreak of head lice. And so upon checking the children's heads, we found the head lice. And so that's why most of the rest of the class had to go home. Now, once they have gone to some of them will go to their doctors. Others of them will go down to the drugstore and get preparations to rid themselves of head lice. And then we have a policy that they must be knit-free. And so there may have been a few children that were going home that had come back, had been treated, but still had nits in their hair. So they have to wait until they're knit-free and then return to our classrooms. That's just a safety policy because of the fact that if they're not knit-free, those may be live nits, and they may become live head lice. And head lice is highly contagious in that it can spread easily from one person to the other, especially when you've got a situation where we've got the coats in the cubbies, and there's just that's just a safety policy. Colds and flus with fever, we ask the families to have the children return 24 hours after a fever, because a lot of times an onset of an illness might be a fever, and then the other symptoms will present within that 24-hour period. So we ask that they keep them home for at least 24 hours. For example, if you are sent home on Monday with a fever, we ask them to stay out on Tuesday and return on Wednesday fever-free. And so there are a lot of things that occur in this age group that make it necessary for them to exclude the children and have them return with something from their doctor. I try to impress upon parents the importance of, listening to the children when they're saying that they don't feel good. A lot of times we think that they're just trying to get out of perhaps having to get up and go out so early in the morning, and they just would rather stay home. But sometimes those are indicators that something really serious is going on. If you note that your child seems to be very tired, and yet they're going to bed and getting adequate rest, and or if they just seem not to be able to function, they're just really tired and kind of listless, maybe indications of something going on. And make it necessary that you make other arrangements for them or have them be seen by their physician. We see children come in with rashes. If there's a notation that they have eczema or something, then we've got some documentation of what it might be. But there's so many things that look the same that might be something that is contagious and can be spread throughout the classroom very, very rapidly. So what we do is we ask that parents take those children to their doctors and to make sure that it's a non-contagious condition, and then they may return with the permit. And these sometimes those are inconvenient kinds of things because it requires that maybe you have to find someone who can take the child because of your work schedule. But in the end, it results in a healthier classroom for all of the other students. I'm concerned that when children have colds, that a sign of perhaps needing to have intervention with a physician is that if the drainage that's coming from the nostrils is discolored, that it may indicate that there may be an infection going on and you may need antibiotics to clear it up. Children complaining of their ears hurting and maybe an indication of ear infection. And things that go untreated can cause serious conditions such as the eardrum bursting because of the fluid that builds up when you have an ear infection. And if that's not taken care of, it can cause some hearing damage. And so all of these are things that we need to be aware of. The other thing that I like to share with parents, and while we're talking about school-age children 3, 4, and 5 years of age, is that they often seem that they are responsible and can do a lot of things, and we want them to do as much as they can. But in preparing them for school, it's really the adult's responsibility to check, to make sure that their hair is combed properly, to look and help them, assist them as much as possible. Brushing of teeth, they need to have your assistance. When they're 3, 4, and 5 years old, sometimes their skill levels are not to the point where they can really get the job done to the point that it will be preventative in the area of tooth decay. So I like to impress that parents that they need to assist them, especially in getting those back teeth and that flossing. I know very few children in the age range of Head Start that can do that and do it in a manner that's going to be effective. So those are things. When they're bathing, children like to get in the tub and play, and that's fine. But as to the part of the bath that is for hygiene purposes or cleaning the body, parents need to assist children in getting their necks washed and in getting their faces clean and getting those ears and just in getting a good thorough bath for the purpose of bathing, and that's to keep our bodies clean. And then once that's done, let them have some playtime. But and another safety factor is never leave a child alone in a tub. It only takes just a turn to get the telephone, and you may have a scalded child or you may have a child who's drowned it. So we want to be assisting our children. If a child feels good about their appearance, then they feel good about themselves. And so that helps with their esteem. My face is clean. I know my hair looks nice, because children are it's just so honest that if you come into the room and your face you still got sleep in your eyes, or your hair's just all over your head, then they're going to say, "Oh, look at you," and they might tease. And we don't promote that. We say to the children, "Let's not do that. We don't want to make anyone feel bad." But yet it might occur because of their honesty. They say what they see. And so we can help our children have a better day by helping them get started. I know there are children who are bedwetters, and that's a problem. It's a real problem. But if you have a child who's wetting at night, then you need to arrange a schedule that you may get up in the morning and that child gets a good bath before they put on clean clothing, because clean clothing will not mask odors. And the one thing that you can be assured of is if you come into a classroom and if a child arrives and there's an odor, the children might not say a word, but they will shy away from that child. And then you've got a child who's feeling bad about themselves and really in a position not to do anything, because it's the parents' responsibility to make sure that the children get proper nutrition, get their baths, and look like they should, or look appropriate.
Is a network. So this system that we have here is a little bit different. All of these computers, all 19 computers, are connected to that computer right there. All of the programming is in that computer. Now, this is a network, and all of these are called workstations. This system here is networked. In the other room, the computers are standalone. So let's say you're playing your solitaire on this machine, and somebody else is playing with Taipei on another machine. Each of those programs had to be installed on each machine. Here, you have one of these?
Yes, thank you.
Here, all of the programs that you are using are installed on that machine right there. That's our network server. Now, let's say let's start from the beginning. You know absolutely nothing about the computer. That's the way we're going to assume it. Is that okay? Can I make that assumption? Yes. Okay. So if I make that assumption, then I'm going to ask you some terms and see if we can figure out what we're talking about. They love to use two words, hardware and software. Judging by what we've been doing, what you've been messing around with, what do you think hardware is?
The machine.
Yeah. Now, you just aced it. Yes. Anything else?
Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
So now the next thing we need to do, I got one A, I want to see about getting another one. We done just said that the machine itself is the hardware. So now we're going to ask another question. If the machine itself is the hardware, what are the components of the hardware? The disk, that's a component of hardware. But what else? Let's pick something even easier that we're looking at right now. I heard the mouse, the keyboard, the printer, the screen, or the monitor. So all of those are components of the hardware. So I thought you said you didn't know anything about computers. Everybody in here has basically told me about some hardware. Okay? So the hardware basically is things that you can touch. If you can touch it, it's hardware. Okay? So now let's call them out specifically. This thing here is our monitor. Okay, there are different types. We got the color monitors, and that's monochrome or black and white. I used to have one of these when I was a kid, long time ago. This here is the monitor. We got something else here that's part of the computer, and this is the keyboard. Now, you're familiar with the keyboard from Typing 101. Exact same keyboard. The only difference is it may have some function keys on it. And they may have added the numeric section. They didn't have that when I was younger. Now, the next thing we got here, somebody said it was the mouse. The mouse is hardware. That little thing that you were dragging around, that's our mouse. Another piece of hardware, another thing that we touch. Somebody point to another piece of hardware. We've already done the monitor, the keyboard, and the mouse. What's another piece of hardware? Printer, keypad 2 basically would be, but the tower. I love the way they pick these words out. I guess it's a tower because it stands up. Okay? But they also have another one. This one, the second one that we have, that's not in here, that sits on the top of your desk, is called a desktop. So we have two types of these. Okay? The tower and the desktop. Now, these things here are where the computer brain is, the CPU, central processor. Now, when you work with me, we will be using these. And I'm going to differentiate and tell you the difference between each of these. But we've discussed the hardware, and somebody mentioned the printer, the diskettes in. So all of those have to come with your computer, and we'll call that a system. Okay, so now we got our computer system. That piece of paper that I gave you, I have all the terms there. You can write in what they are. Because we can touch a printer, right? But we don't have to buy a computer with a printer, do we? So a printer, anything that does not come with your computer specifically, is called a peripheral.
So a mouse and a printer would be peripheral?
Yeah, we might consider a mouse peripheral too. Now, I don't have to spell that because I'm pretty sure I wrote it on this paper. I hope I wrote it because I've got to remember how to spell it. Okay, I wrote it. Thank the Lord, because I can't spell it. Okay. Now, we have other types of hardware that we're going to talk about also, or at least I'll mention them. CD-ROM. Scanners is another piece of hardware. All of those are things that you can touch, things that you can feel. I need to ask somebody a question. This young lady right here. Yes, I got to ask. Yep, the smiling one. Yes, got to ask her. With that smile, got to ask. Could you tell me how to tie my shoes? You could. So if I didn't know how to tie my shoes and you would have said, JD, you grab the two strings and you could tell me everything that I would have to do to tie my shoes. Now, if you did that, guess what you're doing? You are creating a program. So if you can do that, you've just programmed. Well, all of these things that we've just used, that solitaire game that you were playing, this Windows screen that we're looking at, everything that we look at on the machine, somebody had to program it. So these are called, all the programming is called software. So any type of instructions that somebody has to write down to tell the computer what to do is software. Now, in order for us to do solitaire, we had to take our little mouse. Everybody was moving the mouse. I like to call it Mickey. And as you move the mouse, the arrow was moving. Everybody noticed that. Let's see now. Software. We even learned what software was. Any instructions that you give me or that's given to the computer by somebody is software. All of the programs that you have used thus far would be called software. So if you had to give a definition of software, a good definition might be software is information that tells the computer to do a specific thing. That might work for
lecture and walking the students through. Right. And so it would be that kind of situation. It's just that you may